From the Florida Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Joe Lundberg.
Cookies, 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 cookies.
When you want something special and fun for any occasion, get cookies. That's right. The Great American Cookie Company in the Paddock Mall, Ocala will make a delicious, fun-filled delight just for you. You might notice that I said fun and delicious more than once. That's because I can't say it enough. The next time you're at the mall, be sure and stop by or call 352-237-2557 to place your order.
Cookies, cookies,
Yum.
cookies, cookies. We go cookie eating cookies.
The Great American Cookie Company.
Hi, this is Joe, and I'm your host for the new show, Damage Control, every Tuesday morning at 10:30 a.m., brought to you by Damage Control Services. We're going to be discussing floods, fires, storm and tree damage, sinkholes, mold, and many other disasters that you need to know about, how to prevent and prepare for them, as well as what to do when it happens and what to expect after it happens. This is Damage Control, Tuesdays at 10:30, right here on The Source.
All right, 23 minutes before 8 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. Just imagine, I mean, if you're a parent, you don't need to imagine this because you went through this. You have a little child, baby, brand new baby, perfect person, right? Mm-hmm. You're bringing them up, you're playing with them, you're watching them grow, go through all the birthdays. The most beautiful gift you've ever been given in the world is the gift of parenthood, right?
Yeah.
And you haven't done anything wrong, really. You're just living your life, and as the kid goes through, your child, I shouldn't say kid, goes through life, somehow or other, he or she becomes addicted to something, and absolutely has a big effect on you because you love your son, you love your daughter. What do you do? I mean, you feel so helpless. I mean, you go to the experts, and the experts will tell you what to do. We've got programs, and you hear success stories from these programs. And when it's all done and your child is finally out of that, it's like, oh man, I'm so glad we were able to beat that thing that you were addicted to. I think we're all kind of addicted to probably something or other. I don't know that drug addiction is the only thing. That's probably the biggest thing, though. That's a problem. Our next author sort of went through that. Well, did go through that. The word "sort of" doesn't apply.
No.
His son Nick was addicted to something. I don't know the whole story, but David Sheff wrote a book called Beautiful Boy. Love that title, by the way.
Yeah.
There's a song by John Lennon called Beautiful Boy.
Yeah, it's a beautiful song.
David Sheff has a new book. It's called Clean. Actually, let me tell you this. I could list every magazine in America, and I think he's written for it.
Yeah.
My favorite one is Playboy, only because I like the cartoons. His book is called Clean. He was listed by Time Magazine's list of the world's most influential people as one of those people. And if this book is embraced by our country, then he'll be at the top of that list, I think. Clean, Overcoming Addiction and Ending America's Greatest Tragedy. David Sheff, it's an honor to be able to speak to you. Good morning.
Well, Larry, thank you so much. You just recited my life story. I don't even need to talk now.
Oh, no. Well, where are you? Where are you calling from?
I'm in Washington, D.C. today.
Was it your battle to get Nick off of drugs? And please correct anything I'm saying that's wrong. But was it that got you in this whole direction that took you to this point that we're talking about?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It did. I never thought about drugs. I didn't think about addicts. I mean, my only experience with addiction was what I saw, in the movies. You'd see, there's this sort of stereotypic image of what a drug addict is.
Right.
I had that same image, and we were one of the families, just like most families out there in America, who thought, this could never happen to us. No, this is not my son. It was inconceivable.
Right.
And then, as you said, he went from being, this lovely, perfect child,
right,
to being someone that was unrecognizable, and he disappeared. He was on the streets. I mean, imagine, my son had become homeless, and here was a kid who was, the star student, great athlete, all the things that we think, is going to tell us how our kids are doing. On those measures, he was doing great, and then he started using drugs, and he ended up in the hospital a few times. I got a call in the middle of the night, Mr. Sheff, this is a doctor in the emergency room at San Francisco General, and we have your son, and we're not sure if he's going to make it. You should get down here.
Oh, my goodness. And how's he doing now?
Well, that's a miracle. People, he almost died, not just that one time, but half a dozen times. And he went into treatment, as you suggested at the beginning, and he came out, and I thought, oh, my God, thank God it's going to be over. And it wasn't over, he would relapse, and that happened time and again. He ended up going into 7 different treatment programs, but now he's been clean for 5 years. He has the life that he always wanted, and and then there was a point, of course, where we didn't even know if he was going to survive. So it's a miracle.
Wow, good for you. So you went on a mission. You went on to find out, is there a better way than what is, I guess, considered the best way, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, when we made it through that, I was left with so many, just this sort of rage, to tell you the truth. Here we are. I found out that, there are 12 million people in America that are addicted, and we don't think about it, we don't talk about it. And then when something like this happens to a family like ours, first of all, we're completely shocked because we don't talk about it. Nobody knows that it's even likely or possible. And then secondly, when it happens, we don't know what to do. So my mission became at that point to figure out, what's wrong with the system and what we can do better.
One thing I guess is fair to say about the book, and again, anything I say that is wrong, forgive me and correct me, but one thing that can be said is that you are not just rehashing old understandings. You actually have some new information, a new approach, don't you?
I do, and that's the conclusion I came to after these years and years of conversations with doctors and researchers and treatment professionals and and addicts themselves and their families. It's that we have the reason Nick suffered so much, and the reason in so many cases the story has a far, far, far worse conclusion, because so many people don't make it. I mean, we lose 350 people every day to this disease.
Wow.
Is that we think about it, as if it's this moral thing. We tell people, you're bad. You have to, we arrest them. We make their youth go underground because they're going to be in trouble, and plus we're going to judge them if we don't, if we find out. So instead of calling for help when they're at the very beginning, before things get bad, we wait until it gets to be a crisis. But now that we know, the scientists know, the doctors can tell you that this is a disease, and people who get addicted, it's like 10 kids will go out after school one day and they'll all smoke a joint, and most of them, 9 of them are going to be fine, but one of them, life will change inexorably at that point to go down, down, down into addiction. Well, that person has this disease called addiction, and if we stop treating it as if it's a moral failure and instead start to treat it for what it is, when you're sick, you go to the doctor, and there are proven treatments that work. And so this new way of looking at addiction is to recognize that it is a disease, it's a brain disease, and it's treatable.
I think the phrase tough love has really, really gotten out of control, because when anybody starts to be addicted to anything, other people say, oh, you've got to have tough love. You've got to really, not have this communication anymore. You got to be this tyrant. You got to tell them what to do. And to me, that's wrong. To me, that makes the person that's needing the help withdraw into themselves and say, people don't feel like I'm worth anything anymore. I might as well end my life.
Robin, I think you're so right. You just said it perfectly. It's we have a culture that suggests, again, well, if people are using drugs, they're bad. And so we have to punish them in a way, and we have to shun them, and we have to push them aside. And what does that do to somebody? You're right. It makes them feel worthless. They already feel worthless. They're already in so much pain, and so we isolate them. I think that the whole concept of tough love is so dangerous, because we shut a door on people who, they don't need tough love, they need love.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We have a couple of facilities in our community that are considered great. They have high marks from people who know more about this than I will ever know. But I think they all, or the two that I know of anyway, I think they use the 12-step program or some variation of that. Well, if they were to embrace the concepts in your book, would they change that?
Well, first of all, they may, because a lot of programs use the 12 steps as one of as one treatment for people who are addicted, and the 12 steps over the past, whatever it's been, I think 70 years, or I think that's about right, since they were developed, have profoundly changed lives. I mean, they've saved so many people's lives. But hopefully the treatment programs don't only offer that, because the thing that I worry about is that many programs in America only offer the 12 steps. And so it's just like if you have cancer, you see a doctor and they figure out what is right for you. Do you need chemotherapy? Do you need radiation treatment? Do you need other kinds of medications. Maybe you just need to. There's all these different ways of looking at it, and so we need to do the same thing with addiction.
Okay, I see what you're saying. And does the type of addiction change that decision?
It does. For instance, people who are addicted right now, the biggest problem in America is every drug, but more people are dying right now because pain pills. So people are getting Vicodin or OxyContin. They either get it from a doctor or they steal it, and they become addicted to that. And then, because it can be hard to get, those prescription drugs are related to heroin. And so suddenly, you've got a kid who's stolen a few pills and just taken some pills who wants the same high and needs the same high because they become addicted. And so they then, instead of, if they can't get those pills, they can get heroin and get the same effect. And one treatment for heroin addiction that works better than anything else so far is the combination of therapy with these new medications that have been developed that actually block the craving. So a person who's addicted to heroin will have so much of a higher chance of getting sober and staying clean if they use these medications. So we want to look at the newest science, figure out what works best for every drug. So for opiates, these medications with therapy is the best. Other drugs require different kinds of treatment, and that's why, another problem with the current system is we look at everybody as if they're the same, as if every drug addiction is the same, as if every drug is the same, and it's not.
How do you help the parents on their emotional roller coaster? Because as soon as the child veers from right and goes into the wrong direction, the parents almost always say, it's my fault. I should have seen it coming. He or she wouldn't be this way if I would have been more attentive. But like you said, you had the perfect family. Everything was right. How do you help the parents get over their guilt so they can actually help the child?
There is so much guilt. I mean, you're right. It is devastating, and we feel that we're failures because our job is to help our kids grow up healthfully, and when they go this way, it's catastrophic. I mean, I didn't sleep for years. I mean, I couldn't function. I have got 2 other kids. I did my best to be a good father to them, but this was taking over our whole family's life. And what I finally learned is that I couldn't help my son Nick, who was the one on the streets. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't do take care of the rest of my responsibilities, and I had to. Even if I wanted to help Nick over time, I had to take care of myself. And finally, I figured out. Everybody was telling me the whole time, go to therapy, go to Al-Anon meetings, and I kind of rolled my eyes and said, it was like, Nick has the problem. I just have to get him into some sort of treatment. Well, I would not have survived if finally I didn't listen and go in to see a therapist and have counseling. My wife and I both went in to see a doctor who helped us so much, and then I also went to Al-Anon meetings, which are gatherings of people who live with people who someone they love is addicted, and those meetings helped enormously. We were in a community of people who understood what we were going through because they were going through it too.
The book is called Clean. David Sheff is our guest, and he's the author. The subtitle, Overcoming Addiction and Ending America's Greatest Tragedy. If you know somebody, or maybe you are somebody who's addicted to something, especially a chemical substance, would this help somebody with an addiction to something that we don't consider a chemical, like the internet or sex or some of the other things that we hear about that we didn't used to think were addictions?
That's one of the things they know now. People get very cynical about that sometimes. They think, yeah, right, sex is an addiction, food is an addiction, gambling is an addiction. Well, just stop. Well, the problem is that they are addictions, and they work in similar ways to drug addiction. The brain of people who become addicted to whatever it is are functioning differently, and they need treatment. And so, this is a model. I mean, my focus is on drugs, on the chemicals, on alcohol and heroin, but all of the information about how addiction works and how we treat addiction applies to anyone with any addiction.
It seems that you really are an encourager for each individual to have a sense of purpose, and thereby this might help people more readily get off their dependency.
I hope that besides educating people about this disease, I hope it also becomes clear that you don't have to continue to suffer. and that you can get better. And you have to take some action, which means following a course that you would take if you were ill with anything else. So if you had the first signs of cancer, you would go to a doctor and get the best advice, take tests, whatever it was required to figure out exactly what you needed to do. And that is what I hope people will take away if they are struggling. Maybe they're not sure if they're addicted, but they suddenly realize that they're drinking too much, and they're drinking more often than they feel like they should, and they're waking up in the morning every morning with a hangover, and they're going to work, and then they come home. Maybe you're fine. Maybe you're fine, but maybe there is something wrong. So instead of waiting to find out until you suddenly have dramatic problems, you get into an accident, you lose your job, whatever it is, that's the time to go see somebody. Go talk to somebody. Get an assessment. Have a doctor do an assessment and figure out, and maybe you're fine, maybe you do need to watch what's going on, or maybe you need some sort of intervention. And that can save your life, and it can change your life. And rather than waiting for problems, we want to catch this early.
And by the way, you do include marijuana as one of the problems. You don't brush that off as, oh, that's nothing. Am I right about that?
I am. I mean, I think that it's really a confusing time for people when they think about marijuana. It's really confusing for kids. The facts are, these are facts, I'm not, it's not like an opinion here, is that marijuana is dangerous for children because their brains are changing dramatically. They're evolving. And all the research shows that marijuana impacts the development of a brain. So if someone's using drugs when they're 12, 13, 14 years old, and they're starting to smoke pot and they're 15 and they're 16, their brain will look different than it would have looked. And the ways that the practical ways that those differences manifest is that it affects memory, it affects thinking, it affects motivation. There's a whole list of harms.
Wow.
And so my prescription for dealing with that, half kids that are out there, have smoked or will smoke pot. So they're out there smoking, and we have this system that is the fact that drugs are illegal, the fact that marijuana is illegal doesn't stop kids who want to smoke from smoking. And so instead of treating this as if it's a criminal problem, as if it's a problem about legality, we have to recognize that this is a health problem. And if kids are starting to smoke marijuana young, we have to help educate them, and we have to give them strategies to grow up, and we have to help them with the stresses in their lives instead of scolding them, instead of kicking them out of school. I mean, the last thing you want to do is kick a kid out of school because he's caught smoking pot. Because what are you doing then? You're robbing him of his self-esteem. You're ruining or you're harming the chances for his future. And what is all that's going to do? You're going to make him
makes sense.
More likely to use drugs.
Well, I hope people will embrace your message, David. I have a copy of David's book, and you can have the copy I have if you're the first one to call in and ask for it. The rest of us have to go get it. David, do you want to send us to a website or anything like that?
There's a lot of information about this disease and also about how you can get involved if you want to help change the government's way of viewing this disease. It's all on my website, which is www.davidsheff.com.
Okay, and David spells his last name S-H-E-F-F, easy enough to spell. David, thank you. Again, it's an honor to be able to have you on the show with us this morning. I'm glad that there's a good report regarding Nick, and I see why you are considered one of the most influential people in the world. David, thank you so much for being with us today.
It's a great pleasure. Thank you so much.
All right, we'll take a little break and be right back.
In citrus industry news on Southeast AgNet, citrus grower Mark Manuel's recent participation in the Florida Department of Citrus's Captain Citrus program at 2 Hardy County schools was an eye-opener for him. Here's his report.
I helped out at 2 schools, Zolfo Springs Elementary School and then Wauchula Elementary School right here in Hardy County. It was a fantastic experience. The Department of Citrus sent down 4 young people, I think, that are on their staff, and they performed as Captain Citrus with a group that really got the kids charged up over citrus. It was